Lords, I too warmly thank the Noble Lady for promoting this important debate. I share the deep concerns over the suffering of the Rohingya peoples, but I will focus on northern Shan and Kachin states, as these have received less media coverage and desperately needed humanitarian aid. Renewed offences by the Burmese military are causing mass displacement of civilians throughout North East Burma. There's been sporadic fighting over several years, but recently this has intensified, with daily attacks displacing thousands and killing hundreds in the past few weeks. On the 1st of May, the UN expressed grave concerns over increased fighting in Kachin State. Many civilians are trapped in conflict zones without access to humanitarian aid. UN Special Rapporteur Yanghee Lee has made repeated calls for the safety of civilians and provision of aid. But the Burmese government has blocked access to all humanitarian aid international organisations and to the UN in ways similar to its treatment of the Rohingya. The latest wave of displacement adds to the over 100,000 already displaced from Kachin and Shan states. Many remained trapped by the military in conflict areas, forced to seek shelter in nearby forests without access to food, water or medical supplies. Over 3,000 are confined in dangerous conflict areas in Kachin state. The suffering inflicted by military offensives is exacerbated by frequent violations of human rights and crimes against humanity, with reports of extrajudicial killings, sexual violence and torture. Interviews with displaced peoples, IDPs, in Shan camps tell horrific stories of civilians beaten and used as forced labour by the military, farms taken from villagers and children recruited by the military. Shan Human Rights Foundation reports arbitrary arrests, and Amnesty International found treatment of ethnic minorities in Shan and Kachin states similar to the Rohingya. There are also reports of extortion, villages levelled to make space for hydro projects along the rivers, land grabbing for expansion of mining and hydro projects. The numbers of IDPs has grown alarmingly. The 14th of March, over 800 displaced in 3 towns in northern Shan state. 17th of March, 200 civilians displaced from Namtu Township, Shan state. 28th of April, following a month of intensified military attacks, 4,000 more displaced from Kachin state. 6th of May, another 500 displaced from Shan state, seeking refuge in monasteries and churches. 8th of May, the figure increased to over 6,000 civilians displaced from Kachin state. And the 8th of May also a further 600 displaced from Namtu Township. My lords, around 2,800 villagers in Kachin state are seeking refuge in churches in the capital and nearby villages. Displacement continues, and the chance of return, as is recommended by current policy, is prevented by continuing offensives, destroyed homes, and landmines restricting access to villages. There's also restriction of access for essential aid supplies and the blocking of escape routes for civilians by destruction of bridges and road closures. My lords, the Rohingya crisis has shifted the provision of aid from the eastern border to Rakhine State, much needed, but this has caused severe malnutrition for many living in camps on the eastern border. Humanitarian agencies have been refused access to townships in Kachin State. For example, on the 23rd of April, a Red Cross food convoy was reportedly blocked from entering Manwai village, where over 100 civilians are trapped. My lords, my small NGO, Heart, with whom I work and with whom I visited these people, we work in partnership with SWAN, Shan Women's Action Network, who provide healthcare and education in camps in Burma and for Shan civilians forced to live in Thailand. They lost DFID funding in 2017. May I ask the Noble Lord the Minister, what was the UK position regarding the policy change which led to the cessation of funding for local aid organisations along the eastern border in favour of working with government-approved organisations? And will they consider a reversal of that policy to allow direct funding to NGOs such as SWAN, who carry out vital work for local people? And finally, what representations has the UK government made to the government of Burma to cease military offensives in Shan and Kachin states, to ensure the protection of civilians and to allow for access for urgent humanitarian assistance?